He who is guided by fear and does good only to avoid evil is not led by reason. Spinoza. You do not love her. You love the reaction she triggers, the tremor beneath your ribs, the shift in your breath, the electricity that builds behind the eyes when she smiles, half real, half promised. What you've named love is a reflex, a loop. She doesn't need to speak. She doesn't need to ask. She doesn't even need to stay. Her very absence grows roots in your mind. Not her, but the trace of her. The impression she leaves in your nervous system. This is what holds you, and you call it devotion, but it is dependency. Dependency camouflaged as depth. You're not moved by her presence. You're moved by how your body rearranges itself in response to it. You're not seeking truth. You're chasing stimulation, waiting for a biochemical answer to your ontological emptiness. You collapse in the warmth because you have no center. She knows, not intellectually, not consciously, but biologically. She does not decide to manipulate. She does not plot. But her instincts are older than your awareness. She adjusts the volume of her voice. She calibrates the duration of her silence. She appears just long enough to keep you malnourished but addicted. You interpret that as affection. But it's not care. It's control through absence. Spinoza warned you. What you feel is not virtue. It is not knowledge. It is a disturbance in the order of your being caused by external causes overpowering your inner structure. The more something outside moves you, the less you remain yourself. You mistake movement for meaning. You mistake reaction for reality. You mistake her for salvation. But she is not your savior. She is your trigger. And you, the man who thought he was in love, are only in love with the sensation of being moved. Moved from your axis. Moved from yourself. Moved from reason. This is not romance. It is regression. It is addiction to stimulus disguised as emotional connection. You will keep losing yourself, not because she breaks you, but because you never chose to be still. You were never the cause, only the echo. You say it's her you crave, her voice, her gaze, her touch. But remove the stimulus, and what remains, not her, only the disturbance. You do not love the person. You love the sensation. You do not reach for her because of what she is. You reach because of what you become when she enters the room. That shift electric nameless total is not proof of connection. It is proof of your own disorientation. The moment she looks away, you begin to decay. She hasn't harmed you. She hasn't spoken. But her silence pierces more than knives. Not because she wields power consciously, but because your system is wired to depend on her signals to exist. Spinoza said, the more you strive to control emotions, the more they control you, unless you understand their causes. You don't understand. You don't know that you're not addicted to her. You're addicted to the you that only appears when she is near. The temporary self, the inflated ego, the illusion of purpose in your chest when she smiles. And when it fades, you do not return to neutrality. You return to collapse. She becomes your mirror, but not a mirror of truth. A mirror of longing, of projection, of hunger mistaken for intimacy. Her footsteps are not love. They are dopamine cues. Her glances are not meaning. They are chemical triggers. Still, you chase them. You dress the pursuit in words like destiny, affection, meaning. But the animal in you is not seeking union. It is seeking sensation. You are not attracted to her reality. You are entranced by the way your nervous system lights up in her shadow. You don't know her. You don't even try. because knowing her would require the collapse of the myth. And the myth is more valuable than the truth. She becomes your altar, but not because she is holy, because you are empty. Spinoza speaks of conatus, the striving of each thing to persevere in its own being. But you do not strive to preserve yourself. You strive to dissolve yourself into her. You call it merging, but it is erasure. You are not moved by love. You are moved by volatility, by the fantasy that something outside you could stabilize your core. But the more she enters you, the less of you there is, and still you ask for more. You say, I miss her, but what you really mean is I miss the chemicals. I miss the self I felt while orbiting her. I miss not having to be still. It was never about her. It was always about movement. She is not your desire. She is your excuse. You never loved her. You loved escaping you. You think emotion is proof of something sacred, that if it aches, it must be real. If it burns, it must be love. But pain is not evidence. It is residue, the leftover byproduct of being moved against your will over and over again, and calling that movement divine. You mistake the strength of your feelings for the depth of your connection. You call it passion. But Spinoza names it differently. An emotion, which is a passion, ceases to be a passion as soon as we form a clear and distinct idea of it. What does this mean? It means your chaos is not love. It is ignorance. It is you being acted upon. A man at the mercy of a force he doesn't recognize. Reacting, contorting, submitting. The more emotional you become, the further you fall from yourself. Emotion, when not born of understanding, is slavery. You do not move it. It moves you. You are stirred by her tone. You spiral when she retreats. You ascend when she approves. Your entire state is outsourced to signals you don't control. That is not intimacy. That is dependence. The tragedy is this. You believe that because it's intense, it must be meaningful. But intensity is not clarity. It is fog. It is noise. It is fire without light. She knows how to trigger it, not by calculation, by instinct. She raises her voice by a half octave. She looks down, then up. She pulls away, not to punish, but to amplify your desire. To remind you how empty you are without her proximity. You take the bait every time. You run toward her emotion with your own. You become a flame chasing another flame, believing that merging will bring peace. But fire does not heal fire. It only burns faster. You begin to obey your longing, not your reason, not your structure, not your being. You chase mood swings like signs from heaven. You read every delay in her message as a symbol. You live in interpretation. You become an oracle of nothing. Spinoza writes, "He who is led by emotion is not his own master, and you are not. Not when her silence breaks you, not when her affection reforms you. You are a reflection, a weather pattern, a variable conditioned by a woman who may not even care but knows how to keep you tethered. You are not loved. You are harvested for your emotional obedience, for the tremors she can summon in you. And the more she succeeds, the more you call it fate. But it is not fate. It is programming, a loop you mistake for destiny. You are not free when you feel everything. You are free when you are not shaken by it. And right now, you are in pieces. Each mood, a new master. Each gesture from her, a new leash. You call it vulnerability. But it is exposure. Nakedness mistaken for connection. Suffering mistaken for meaning. You were taught that emotion is the heart of love. But in truth, emotion, without understanding, is the rope around your neck, and every time she tugs you smile. She doesn't need to raise her voice. She doesn't need to command. She doesn't need to argue, explain, or prove. Her power is not visible, not verbal, not logical. Her power is silent. It lives in your nervous system now, in the anticipation of her next move, in the way your entire day adjusts to her delay, in the way your sense of self begins to orbit the temperature of her mood. This is not affection. This is architecture, an internal reconfiguration designed not by intent, but by instinct. Spinoza understood the mind is more disturbed by things it does not understand than by things it clearly conceives. You do not understand her silence. You do not understand her withdrawals. You do not understand why her warmth arrives like weather, unpredictable, unannounced. And because you don't understand, you interpret, you romanticize, you self-blame, you become a builder of illusions just to survive the ambiguity. This is how she controls you. Not with violence, not with lies, with absence. Her delay becomes your question mark. Her unread message becomes your spiritual riddle. You reread the last words she sent, not because they hold truth, but because they are all you have left. Fragments, hints, scattered breadcrumbs of meaning in a forest of uncertainty. She is not trying to hurt you. She doesn't need to. The power is already installed. It lies in how you bend to avoid upsetting her, in how you mute your truth to preserve her image of you, in how you silence your instincts just to avoid her cold shoulder. She doesn't have to punish. She only has to look away. You think she's soft, but softness is strategy. You think she's nurturing, but nurture can be conditional. You think she's vulnerable, but vulnerability is a weapon when used at the right moment, with the right expression, in the right room. She doesn't speak to dominate. She withdraws, and the void she leaves becomes a leash. Spinoza wrote of conatus, the striving to continue existing. But in her presence, your striving changes direction. You no longer strive to preserve yourself. You strive to preserve her perception of you, to remain desirable in her eyes, to remain chosen. But the more you strive toward her, the more you vanish. She becomes the axis, and you the dancer around it. You weren't broken. You were just open. But now you are programmable, not by reason, not by wisdom, but by withdrawal, by glance, by breath. You think you are acting freely. You are not. You are responding, always responding, to a system, to an instinctual ancient design that sees your attention as fuel and your confusion as proof of her gravity. She does not need to define herself. You will do it for her. That is her architecture. Invisible, unaccountable, total. You say you want her, but want is not the word. It is not desire. It is dissolution, the undoing of structure in the name of proximity. You do not pursue her to connect. You pursue her to dissolve, to melt into something softer than you, to escape the rigidity of being a man with an edge, a limit, a spine. She is not your pleasure. She is your erasure. Desire is not the beginning of intimacy. It is the beginning of absence. The more you want, the more you abandon the stillness that once defined you. Spinoza warned, desire is the essence of man. Yes, but desire without awareness is self-cancellation. You do not desire her body. You desire the annihilation of your distance from her. You desire to be consumed. And in being consumed, you vanish. She becomes the setting, the light, the weather, the definition of your next breath. You name it love, but it is the ritual of self-extinction. Each time she glances at you a certain way, you adjust. Each time she pulls away, you chase. Each sigh, each gesture, each ambiguous touch, they bend you. And you call this bending natural. But nothing in you was built to serve this volatility. Nothing in you was designed to adapt endlessly. You are not an ocean. You are stone, or you were. Before desire soaked through the cracks, you became soft where you should have been solid. You became air where you should have been weight. She doesn't need to push. She only needs to invite. A curve of her hip, the lift of a brow, a pause before undressing. It's not love, it's programming, and you obey. Not because you are weak, but because you are chemically aligned with the illusion that this is fulfillment. But fulfillment does not erode you. It does not leave you emptier than before. This is not the high of love. This is the crash of misdirected longing. You desire her not for what she is, but for what you are not in her absence. The ache isn't for her, it's for the self you can't find when she's gone. And so, you touch her. But it is not connection. It is confirmation that you still exist, that you still matter, that you are still desired. But that need proves one thing, that without her gaze, you fall apart. You don't chase her out of love. You chase to postpone collapse. You think her lips hold salvation. They don't. They hold permission to forget yourself for one more night. You think her body is home. It isn't. It's the drug that delays your confrontation with the void, and desire that ancient current pulls you deeper into her. Not to know her, but to forget the man you failed to build. This is not attraction. This is disappearance. You think her affection is real, that her touch is spontaneous, that her warmth is honest. But warmth can be a tactic. Touch can be calibration. Affection can be instinct, not truth. She smiles, not to express feeling, but to maintain control. She leans into you, not because she needs you, but because she knows you need to be needed. Spinoza did not believe in free will as you imagine it. Men think themselves free because they are conscious of their actions and ignorant of the causes by which they are determined. She is not malicious, but neither is she innocent. She adjusts, responds, learns you quickly. She learns how long to stay quiet, when to press close, and when to retreat. She learns that your attention spikes after absence, that your loyalty increases after emotional starvation. She does not plan. She does not plot. Her body remembers what works. And her body is a strategist, older than your mind. You say, she held my face like I was the only man. But so many men believe that. And they are all wrong, not because she lied, but because the feeling wasn't personal. It was effective. Her performance is not an act of theater. It is survival. It is instinctual governance of your psychology, and it works. Every time. She does not need to know philosophy. She already understands what moves you, because she is built for emotional orchestration. And you are the instrument. She cries, not only because she's hurt, but because she knows how your protection instinct responds. She walks away, not only because she's upset, but because she's seen how fast you follow. She says, I miss you just late enough to keep the wound open. She offers softness when you're about to harden. She makes you feel irreplaceable, but only after you've begged. And you call this love, but it is maintenance, behavioral adjustment, psychological supply chain optimization. You are not her partner. You are her emotional responder. You don't see the pattern. because you don't want to. You don't want to believe that what felt sacred was strategic, that what made you feel chosen was just well-timed proximity, that the tear in her eye was not an invitation into her soul, but a calibrated device to unlock yours. When you question her affection, she mirrors your doubt as if it wounds her. She leans in soft, wounded, barely blinking, and says, "How can you even think that?" And you crumble because you want to believe. But belief is not proof. Feeling is not evidence. And affection is not always love. Sometimes it is the rope, tied gently, lovingly, so gently that you thank her for the knots. You do not want truth. You want comfort. And she knows you will stay. Because the fiction she weaves tastes better than the silence without her. Because the illusion of affection is warmer than the cold of self-reliance. But warmth without truth is seduction, and seduction, when habitual, is control. You don't love her. You love how she stages her care, how she regulates your devotion through calculated gestures, and how you, still unable to be still, mistake her strategy for salvation. You say she left, but what truly left was the feeling, the rhythm, the echo of yourself that only existed in her presence. She didn't vanish. She only stopped mirroring you. And without that mirror, you became invisible to yourself. This is the severance you feared. Not losing her, but losing the you that depended on her reflection. You think the wound is heartbreak. It's not. It's withdrawal. Withdrawal from the illusion, the spell, the chemical version of you that came alive only when she was near. Spinoza speaks without mercy. A free man thinks of death least of all things, and his wisdom is a meditation not of death, but of life. But you are not free. You meditate on loss, on absence, on the shape of her silence. You call it grieving, but it is addiction. The collapse of your false self built entirely on the feedback of her approval. She didn't steal your strength. You gave it willingly, gradually, ritually. Every compliment a transaction, every kiss a negotiation, every surrender a seed of your own erasure. And you thought love was sacrifice. But real love does not erase the self. What you felt was not devotion. It was dependency, wearing a sacred mask. You look in the mirror now and find a man halfway undone. No rage, no clarity. Only a dull ache and the haunting memory of the version of you she seemed to validate. But that version was never yours. It was hers, projected onto you, constructed by her gaze, dependent on her emotional choreography. She didn't mean to erase you. But women are not builders of male identity. They are reflectors. You looked into her and tried to become what she admired, and in doing so, you became unreal. Spinoza taught that the wise man is not moved by external things. He is the cause, not the effect. But you have lived in reverse. You became an echo, a reaction, a being entirely conditioned by the glimmer in her eye and the curvature of her withdrawal. Now the glimmer is gone. The mirror is cracked, and you are left with fragments, not of her, but of your misplaced self. Let that be the gift. Let that be the violence that saves you. You will no longer chase reflections. You will no longer negotiate your worth through affection. You will no longer bend in response to softness. You will not be seduced by silence, nor dismantled by touch. You return to the axis, cold, unyielding, unmoved. This is not apathy. This is sovereignty. You don't need her gaze to feel real. You don't need her body to feel whole. You don't need her love, because love is no longer your master. From now on, you are not what she mirrors. You are what remains when the mirror breaks. She can no longer move you, not because she lost her charm, but because you no longer respond. Her glances don't pierce. Her touch doesn't reignite. Her silence no longer derails you. You do not hate her. You do not love her. You simply no longer need to orbit her. This is not the end of feeling. It is the end of servitude. You see now what Spinoza meant, that freedom is not the absence of emotion, but the clarity that comes from not being governed by it. The more you are led by the emotions, the more you are in the power of external causes. And she was that cause, not by will, not by cruelty, but by nature. She moved and you followed. She withdrew and you crumbled. She offered affection and you kneeled. Not anymore. You now see the choreography, the instinctual adjustments, the emotional calibration that once felt like romance now revealed as control. Not malicious, but precise. You will not respond. Not because you have hardened, but because you have remembered the unmoved center, the place where no whisper reaches, where no manipulation seeps in. Her beauty is no longer a spell. Her warmth is no longer a drug. Her voice is just sound. Her absence is just space. You don't need to heal. You don't need to forgive. You don't need to understand her. You are not her interpreter. You are not her reflection. You are not her project. You are the man untouched by sway. You are the stillness that does not chase. You are no longer seduced by longing, nor reprogrammed by need. You are the one Spinoza envisioned, the one who moves from within, whose choices are not echo, but law. You are not in love, because love, as it was sold to you, was a system of enslavement. And you have left the system. There is no longer a woman in your center. There is no longer a feeling to maintain. There is only you, the original cause, the unmoved mover. From this silence, no plea will reach you. From this axis, no gesture will displace you. From this moment, you are defined not by what you desire, but by what you no longer obey. You do not need her to return. You do not need her to see you. You do not need her to feel anything, because you no longer love the feeling in you. You have severed it, and what remains is the man, complete, unmirrored, unmoved.